The empire was old, very old. Their people had ruled the stars for 12,000 years. They were tall and beautiful with silver skin that shined like metal under any light. They believed they were the greatest species in the universe, and for a long time, no one could prove them wrong. In the center of their empire stood the Crystal Palace. It was made of stones that sang when wind touched them. Every noble family wanted to live close to it. Every young dreamed of walking its halls. But for Princess of House, the palace was a prison. She was the emperor's first daughter. By all rights, she should have been celebrated. She should have had suitors lining up from 100 star systems, but had a problem. A big problem. When she turned of age, the royal doctors examined her and gave their report to the emperor. "She is barren, Your Majesty. She cannot have children, ever." In society, this was the worst thing that could happen to a noble woman. Children meant the continuation of bloodlines. Children meant power. A woman who could not have children was considered broken, useless, a waste of royal blood. Emperor Talon had looked at his daughter with cold eyes that day. He did not comfort her. He did not tell her that everything would be okay. He simply turned away and walked out of the room. He had other daughters, other children who could carry on his legacy, was no longer important to him. For 60 years lived in the shadows of the palace. Servants her. Nobles whispered about her when she walked past. No man would marry her. No family wanted to connect their bloodline to someone who could not continue it. She spent her days in the library, reading about distant worlds and ancient histories. It was the only escape she had. Then the humans came. Earth was a small planet in a distant part of the galaxy. The humans had only recently discovered how to travel faster than light. They were new to the galactic community. Young, primitive, most laughed at them. "They still fight wars over resources," one noble said at a dinner party. "Can you imagine? How barbaric." "I heard they only live for 80 years, another added. "Like insects, here and gone." The Galactic Council decided that the humans deserved a diplomatic envoy. It was tradition. Every new species got one, and Emperor Talon saw an opportunity. He called his advisors to his private chambers late one night. They talked for hours. When they came out, they were all smiling. The plan was simple and cruel. "We will send them Princess," the Emperor announced to his court the next morning. "She will serve as our permanent cultural ambassador to Earth." The court understood immediately. They began to laugh. Some tried to hide it behind their hands. Others did not even bother. This was a joke. The humans were being insulted, and they were too primitive to even understand it. Stood before her father's throne and felt something break inside her chest. She had always known she was unwanted, but this was different. This was her father telling the entire empire that she was so worthless, she could be given away like garbage. "You will leave in 3 days, Emperor Talon said without looking at her. "Take whatever you need. You will not be returning." She wanted to scream. She wanted to cry. She wanted to ask her father why he had never loved her, but she did none of these things. She simply bowed her head and walked out of the throne room. The journey to Earth took 2 months. Traveled alone except for a small crew that barely spoke to her. She spent most of her time looking out the window at the passing stars and wondering what her life would be like on this strange new world. When her ship finally landed on Earth, she expected to find savages. She expected mud huts and primitive tools and people who could barely speak properly. Instead, she found a man waiting for her at the landing pad. He was tall for a human with broad shoulders and a face that looked tired but kind. His hair was starting to turn gray at the sides. "Princess," he asked, bowing slightly, "I am Commander Park of the United Earth Defense Force. Welcome to Earth." His voice was warm. There was no mockery in it, no hidden cruelty. He looked at her like she was a real person, not a defective princess being thrown away. "I know the journey was long," he continued. "You must be tired. Would you like some tea? I have a house nearby, nothing fancy but it's comfortable." Stared at him. No one had spoken to her with such simple kindness in decades. She did not know how to respond. "Tea," she finally managed. Commander Park smiled. It changed his whole face, made him look younger. "It's a drink we make from leaves. I think you might like it. We have many kinds. Some sweet, some bitter. I prefer the bitter ones myself, but we can find something that suits your taste." He offered her his arm like she was someone worth escorting, like she was someone who mattered. Took it. As they walked away from the ship, she looked back one last time at the vessel that had brought her here. In the distance, she could almost hear the laughter of her father's court. They thought they had thrown her away. They thought this was a punishment. But as Commander Park led her toward a small house with a garden full of strange plants, felt something she had not felt in 60 years. Hope. The first thing noticed about Earth was how green it was. They had forests of crystal and mountains of polished stone. Everything there was sharp and cold and perfect. But Earth was soft, messy, alive in ways she had never seen before. Commander Park's house sat on the edge of a military base. It was small by standards. Back home, even servants lived in bigger spaces. But there was something about this little house that made feel safe. Maybe it was the way sunlight came through the windows in the morning. Maybe it was the smell of the flowers in the garden. Or maybe it was just the way always had hot tea waiting for her when she woke up. "Why do you grow things yourself?" asked him one day. She was watching him pull weeds from between rows of vegetables. His hands were covered in dirt. A high-ranking commander doing the work of a farmer. Wiped his forehead and looked up at her. "It helps me remember why I fight. When you spend all your time thinking about war and weapons and enemies, you can forget what peace looks like. But when I'm here in my garden, watching things grow, I remember." Did not fully understand, but she liked watching him work. There was something calming about it. The humans assigned her a cultural liaison named. She was young, maybe 25 by Earth years, with short black hair and a smile that never seemed to fade. Her job was to help understand human customs and to learn about culture in return. "Your crystal sculptures," said one evening, looking at pictures had brought from home. "They're beautiful. The way they catch light and break it into colors. We have nothing like this on Earth. Could you teach me how your people make them?" No one had ever asked to teach them anything before. Back home, she was the broken princess, the one who could not do the one thing that mattered. But here, this young human woman was looking at her with bright eyes full of wonder. "I could try," said softly. And so she began to teach. She showed how shaped crystal with sound waves and heat. She explained the mathematical patterns hidden in every sculpture, the way each piece told a story if you knew how to read it. Listened to every word like it was the most important thing she had ever heard. In teaching, discovered something strange. She was good at this. She had spent so many years reading and studying in the palace library. All that knowledge that she thought was useless suddenly had value. The humans did not care that she could not have children. They cared about what she knew, what she could share. But the biggest surprise came from the human doctors. Doctor was Earth's leading expert on alien biology. She was a small woman with gray hair and glasses that always seemed to be falling down her nose. When she heard about's condition, she asked to run some tests. "Your doctor said I was barren," told her. "They said there was no hope. Medicine is thousands of years more advanced than yours." Doctor just smiled. "Maybe, but sometimes being advanced means you stop asking basic questions. Let me take a look. What harm could it do?" Agreed. She did not expect anything to come from it. For 3 months, Doctor studied biology. She compared it to human biology. She ran tests that doctors had never thought to run. She asked questions that no one had ever asked. Then one afternoon, she called to her office. "I found something," Doctor said. Her eyes were bright with excitement. "Your people declared you infertile because you don't have certain hormonal markers. These markers are present in all fertile women. But here's the thing, princess. Those markers aren't actually necessary for reproduction. They're just how fertility usually shows up in your species. It's like saying someone can't see because they don't have a certain eye color. Felt her heart stop. What are you saying? I'm saying your doctors were wrong. They looked at you through eyes and saw what they expected to see. But I looked at you through human eyes, and I see a woman who is perfectly capable of having children. The room began to spin, grabbed the edge of the desk to steady herself. 60 years. She had spent 60 years believing she was broken. Her father had thrown her away. Her people had laughed at her, all because of a mistake. You're sure? She whispered. Doctor reached across the desk and took her hand. Her grip was warm and firm. I'm sure. It will take some treatment. Your body needs help to do what it's capable of doing. But yes, princess, I'm absolutely sure. That night sat in Commander Park's garden and cried. She cried for all the years she had lost. She cried for the girl who had stood before her father's throne and believed she was worthless. She cried until there were no more tears left. Found her there hours later. He did not ask what was wrong. He simply sat down beside her and put his coat around her shoulders. They stayed like that until the sun came up, saying nothing, watching the stars fade into morning light. And somewhere in that silence, realized that Earth was not a punishment. It was not a joke. It was a gift. The cruel emperor who threw her away had accidentally given her the greatest gift of her life. He had given her a chance to start over. The seasons changed on Earth. Learned that this planet was never the same. Summer was hot and bright. Autumn turned the leaves into fire. Winter brought cold that reminded her of home, and spring made everything new again. Her friendship with Commander Park changed too. It grew slowly, like the vegetables in his garden. At first, they were just two lonely people sharing a house. He had lost his wife years ago to cosmic radiation sickness. She had lost everything she knew when her father sent her away. They understood each other's pain without having to explain it. He taught her to plant tomatoes. The first time she put her hands in the dirt, she felt shocked. Princesses did not touch soil, but here, kneeling in the garden beside, she felt more royal than she ever had in the Crystal Palace. She taught him the star songs of her childhood. These were old lullabies that mothers sang to their children. The words did not translate well into human language, but the melodies were beautiful. Would sit on his porch in the evenings and listen to her sing. His eyes always grew soft when she did. Your people don't know what they lost, he told her one night. Sending you here, they don't understand. Smiled sadly. They know exactly what they sent, a broken princess, a joke. You're not broken. His voice was firm. You're the most complete person I've ever met. She looked at him in the darkness. His face was half in shadow, half in moonlight. He was not young anymore. Neither was she, though aged more slowly than humans. But in that moment, age did not matter. Species did not matter. Only this feeling between them mattered. My people would be appalled, she said quietly. A princess of house falling in love with a human. And my people reached out and took her hand. They would say I'm the luckiest man alive. They married in the spring. It was a small ceremony. Was there, crying happy tears. Doctor came with her whole research team. Some of his military friends attended too. They mixed human and traditions together, wore white like human brides. They exchanged rings like humans did. But they also sang the old wedding songs and made promises under the light of 3 different moons that could be seen from Earth that night. Doctor's treatment began shortly after. It was not easy. His body had never done what they were asking it to do. The medicine made her tired. Some days she could not get out of bed, stayed by her side through all of it. He brought her tea and held her hand and told her stories about his childhood on Earth. Then one morning woke up feeling different. Not sick different, just different. She went to doctor's office alone because she was afraid to hope. She was afraid to be disappointed again. Doctor ran the tests 3 times. Then she sat down heavily in her chair and took off her glasses. Her hands were shaking. "Princess," she said, "you're pregnant." The world stopped, forgot how to breathe. Pregnant. The word that she had been told would never apply to her. The word that her people said was impossible for someone like her. "You're sure?" Her voice came out as a whisper. "I ran the test 3 times, I'm sure." Doctor was smiling now, tears running down her face. "You're going to be a mother." The pregnancy was hard. No one had ever studied human hybrid biology before. Every week brought new challenges. Doctor assembled a team of Earth's best doctors. They worked day and night, using medical texts that had brought with her and human innovation that the texts had never imagined. There were scary moments, times when body struggled, times when the doctors were not sure if the baby would survive. Never left her side. He slept in a chair beside her hospital bed. He read to her from human books and sang to her from songs she had taught him. "She's a fighter," the doctors said after one particularly difficult night, "just like her mother." They knew it was a girl, a daughter. The same thing had been. The same thing that had been called worthless by the Empire. But this daughter would not be worthless. This daughter would be loved. After 9 long months was born. She came into the world screaming, her tiny fists waving in the air. Her skin was silver like her mother's but lighter. Her eyes were dark like her father's but with flecks of gold. She was beautiful. She was impossible. She was perfect. Held his daughter for the first time and cried. Big, silent tears ran down his weathered face as he looked at this tiny creature they had created together. "Hello, little one," he whispered. "I'm your father, and I promise you no one will ever make you feel unwanted. No one will ever tell you that you're not enough. You are everything. You are our everything." Watched her husband hold their daughter, and she thought about her father, Emperor Talon, sitting on his crystal throne, laughing as he sent her away. He thought he was throwing out garbage. He thought he was making a joke. But the joke was on him. The broken princess was a mother now, and nothing in the universe would ever be the same. News traveled fast across the galaxy. The birth of was not something that could be hidden. A human hybrid child, the daughter of a princess from House. It was the biggest scandal the Empire had seen in centuries. Scientists called it impossible. They said the reports must be fake. Human and biology were too different. There was no way a child could be born from such a union. Then the genetic tests came back, carried the unmistakable markers of House, the royal bloodline, the emperor's own family. The scientists stopped talking about impossibility. Now they called her an abomination, a monster, a stain on the purity of blood. Emperor Talon's reaction was swift and terrible. He sent a message to Earth's leaders demanding that return immediately. She was to bring the child with her. There would be a trial. There would be judgment. The honor of the Empire had been damaged, and someone would have to pay. Earth's president at the time was a woman named Moon. She was small but fierce, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. When she received the Emperor's demands, she did not bow. She did not apologize. She called a meeting of the Galactic Council and made a speech that would become famous. "Princess is a citizen of Earth now. She came to us freely. She married one of our citizens freely. She gave birth to her daughter on our soil. She is ours to protect, and we will protect her." The Emperor was furious. No one spoke to him this way. No primitive species from a backwater planet dared to refuse him. He assembled a fleet, 30 warships, enough firepower to turn Earth into dust. But Commander Park had not been wasting time. For years he had been studying technology, had helped him understand its weaknesses. Human engineers working with her knowledge had built new weapons, new shields, new strategies that the Empire had never faced before. More importantly, they had made friends. The Empire was not popular. They had spent thousands of years looking down on other species. They had insulted and dismissed anyone they considered beneath them. Now those species saw a chance for something different. They were a warrior race from the Outer Rim. The Empire had called them savages for centuries, but when Earth reached out with respect and friendship, they listened. They were traders and inventors. The Empire taxed them heavily and mocked their appearance. But when Earth offered fair deals and genuine partnership, they joined the alliance. 11 other species answered the call. They came to Earth not because they had to, but because they wanted to. Because for the first time in galactic history, someone had shown them that the Empire could be challenged. When Emperor Talon's fleet arrived at the edge of Earth's solar system, they expected to find a helpless planet. Instead, they found a wall of ships, cruisers, destroyers, human battleships, vessels from a dozen different worlds all standing together. Commander Park stood on the bridge of Earth's flagship. His wife was safe on the surface below with their daughter. He had said goodbye to them that morning, holding in his arms one last time, telling that he would come back to them. Now he opened a communication channel to the fleet. "This is Commander Park of the United Earth Defense Force. You sent us your broken princess as a joke. We healed her. You told her she was worthless. We showed her she was priceless. Your Majesty, I'm only going to say this once. My wife and daughter are not yours to take. Turn your fleet around or we will turn it for you." There was silence on the channel. Then the Emperor's voice came through, cold and angry. "You dare threaten me? You are insects. Your entire species is barely a moment old. I will destroy your world and everyone on it. Then I will take back what belongs to me." The battle began. Weapons were powerful, their ships were fast, but they fought the same way they had fought for thousands of years. They expected their enemies to be afraid. They expected them to run. The humans did not run. They used tactics they had never seen. Small ships working together like swarms of insects. Weapons that targeted the weak points had told them about. Shields that adapted and changed with every hit. The warriors launched boarding attacks, their small fighters slipping past defenses. They used electronic warfare to confuse the enemy sensors. Every species in the alliance brought something different, something the Empire had never planned for. The battle lasted 17 minutes. When it was over, half the fleet was disabled or destroyed. The Emperor's flagship drifted in space, its engines dead, its weapons silent. A joint human strike team had hit it perfectly. The remaining ships turned and fled. They had come expecting an easy victory. They left in disgrace. On Earth's surface, watched the battle end. She held close to her chest and let the tears fall freely. Her father's empire had come to take her daughter. Her husband had stood in their way, and the universe had changed forever. When returned home that night, covered in sweat and exhaustion, he found his wife and daughter waiting for him in the garden. The tomatoes were ripe. The stars were bright overhead. "You came back," whispered. "I promised I would." He wrapped his arms around both of them. "I will always come back." Somewhere in the darkness of space, a broken emperor retreated to his crystal palace. He had learned something that day, something his people had forgotten over 12,000 years of arrogance. Sometimes the things you throw away become the things that destroy you. 5 years passed after the battle. They were good years, quiet years, and raised their daughter in the little house with the garden, grew fast as hybrid children seemed to do. She had her mother's silver skin and her father's kind eyes. She asked questions constantly and laughed easily and loved to help her father plant vegetables. The galaxy changed during those years. The alliance that had defended Earth grew stronger. Trade routes opened between worlds that had never spoken before. The Empire still existed, but its power was fading. Other species no longer feared them the way they once had. Then word came from Emperor Talon was dead. He had never recovered from his defeat at Earth. His pride was broken. His health declined. In the end, he died alone in his great palace, surrounded by servants who feared him but did not love him. The bigger problem was what came next. His sons had died in the battle for Earth. His other daughters had scattered to distant colonies, afraid to return. No one wanted the throne that seemed cursed now. By ancient law, the crown passed to the eldest surviving child of the royal bloodline. And that meant. The message arrived on a quiet afternoon, was in the garden with watching chase butterflies. A small ship had landed at the base, carrying an official messenger from the High Council. "Princess of House," the messenger said, bowing low, "you are called to return home. The throne awaits you." Read the official documents in silence. Behind her, had stopped chasing butterflies and was watching with curious eyes, stood beside his wife, waiting. "They want me to be empress," said finally. Her voice was strange, like she could not believe her own words. "What do you want?" asked. She looked at him. This human man who had given her tea when she arrived as a discarded princess, who had taught her to plant tomatoes and held her hand through the long nights of her pregnancy, who had stood between her daughter and an entire empire. Then she looked at her impossible child, her proof that everything they believed about purity and worth was wrong. "I want to show them," said slowly. "I want to show them what they threw away." The journey back to was different from the journey that had brought to Earth. This time, she did not travel alone in a small ship. This time, she had an escort of Alliance vessels. Human ships flew alongside cruisers. The species that the Empire had mocked now accompanied the new Empress home. And traveled with her, had refused to go without them. If they wanted her on the throne, they would accept her human husband and her hybrid daughter too. The Crystal Palace had not changed. Its towers still sang in the wind. Its halls still shined with ancient light. But the people inside had changed. When walked through the great doors, the nobles who had laughed at her exile fell silent. They stared at the princess they had discarded, now returning as their ruler. She climbed the steps to the throne. Her father's throne. The seat that had seemed so far above her when she stood before it 60 years ago, hearing his cruel words, feeling the weight of the court's laughter. Now she sat in it, and it fit her perfectly. "You sent me away because I could not bear children," said to the assembled nobility. Her voice was clear and strong. "You called me defective, worthless, a joke, and perhaps by your old laws I was all of those things." She gestured to who stood beside at the base of the throne. The little girl looked up at her mother with complete trust. "But the humans taught me something your ancient wisdom forgot. Value is not determined by what you lack. It is determined by what you give, what you build, what you love. I could not give you children the way you expected, but I gave myself to a people who saw my worth. I built a family that the universe said was impossible, and I loved in ways that your cold hearts have forgotten." The reforms began immediately, opened medicine to outside review. She ended the practice of declaring anyone barren or defective. She signed trade agreements with Earth and the Alliance species. She made it illegal to dismiss someone based on their ability to reproduce. Many nobles protested. Some tried to stop her, but had something they did not. She had friends throughout the galaxy now. She had the respect of species that the Empire had insulted for thousands of years. And she had a human husband who understood military strategy better than any general. The changes were not easy. Nothing worth doing ever is. But slowly, year by year, the Empire became something new, something better. On the anniversary of her coronation, took to the palace garden. For 12,000 years, only pure flowers had grown here. Crystal blossoms and silver vines, beautiful but cold. Knelt in the soil and began to dig a hole, watched her curiously. "What are you planting, mother?" Smiled and pulled a small packet from her pocket. Seeds, tomato seeds, had given them to her before the ceremony. "These are from Earth," she said. "From your father's garden. They remind me of something important." "What?" asked. Looked at her daughter. This child who should not exist. This miracle born from love and stubbornness and human medicine. This girl who was proof that the universe was bigger than any empire's small ideas. They remind me that the best things in life come from unexpected places. Your father was unexpected. You were unexpected. This whole life we have was unexpected. She placed a seed in the hole and covered it with dirt. Sometimes the things people throw away become the most precious things of all. Helped her plant the rest of the seeds. They worked together in the alien soil, grandmother's garden and granddaughter's hands, mixing the old with the new. Far across the galaxy, on a small blue planet, sat on his porch and looked up at the stars. His wife and daughter were far away, building a new empire. But he was not worried. He knew they would come back to him. They always did. And in the meantime, he had tomatoes to grow. The broken princess had become an empress. The joke had become a revolution. And humanity had shown the universe something it would never forget. Love is stronger than any empire. Hope is more powerful than any fleet. And sometimes, the greatest victories begin with a simple cup of tea.